Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back, everyone, to season 2, episode 5 of Witch Please, Sunshine's Guide to the Mystical. And for those of you that are watching this on YouTube and seeing the video, you're going to notice I've got blue light reflectors on my glasses, and it drives me bonkers. So if I'm not looking at the screen, you know why, because I can't stand that. But I'm excited for today's topic. I think it's going to be potentially maybe even a little bit controversial. I don't know. We'll see. But today we are talking about witches. Are they our first doctors? Right? Are they? And so I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. If you've listened to any of the podcasts before, you may have heard it mentioned, but I am the head mistress of Illuminate the Unschool of Witchcraft. And so we introduced a new workshop into the Unschool programming this past month. And it is called I Heal Workshop, and that stands for the Intuitive Healing Workshop. And we're constantly learning how to apply our witchy skills, practice putting them into use. Like, we're not just learning about these things, we literally go in and practice them. I'm not a big fan of lecture. I mean, I spend like maybe 5 to 10 minutes lecturing with a workshop, and we jump right into practical application. And so it was really, really amazing to see how this past week's workshop worked, because it was the first time we'd run it. And so, I'm always kind of testing and trying something new with it. And if it sucked, we would have put the kibosh on it. But people really, really enjoyed it and got a lot of value out of it, right? Because as we're practicing, people on the other end get to actually receive. Uh, and some folks may be wondering, why do I do this? Like, that's okay, that's interesting. Like, why this intuitive healing workshop in a unschool of witchcraft? Uh, and the reason why is pretty simple. I believe, this is my own personal belief, some of my own philosophy, that when folks step into the path of the witch, they're often doing so because they are being called to heal, right? They're being called to heal themselves, and that healing of themselves also leads them to heal others, right? I've watched it over and over and over again. And if you start talking to, witches or folks that are, stepping, into the broom closet to see if they, try on the cloak and see if they like it, right? Before they step back out, a lot of them, when you start to ask them why, it's because, they're trying to heal. They're trying to, bring more self-love into their life. They're trying to bring love, heal from a bad relationship, do shadow work, things of that nature. That tends to be one of the very, very common reasons why people step into the path of the witch or start practicing witchcraft or magic, right? So I figured today we would talk about witches as our first doctor. And as always, we're going to start with the definition of a doctor, because I wanted to just see, like, if somebody's going to go out and start, have a problem with my own belief and kind of philosophy and bringing this up, like, what are some of the things? And so I always love the definitions, right? Everybody can look it up. It's literally recorded in a quote unquote official book called the dictionary. Yes, there are different versions, but they should be relatively similar. And so the first thing, the definition of a doctor is a qualified practitioner of medicine, a physician. And so here today in Western medicine world, that qualification comes through years of education and certifications by boards and all of that kind of lovely stuff. So it's very, yeah, absolutely. The Unschool of Witchcraft is not a certified medical university or anything, but there is a qualification, so to speak, in this regards. And a practice of medicine. So I looked at that and I went, okay, interesting. How are they going to define medicine? And so the definition of medicine is the science or practice of the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease, often discluding surgery. I'm pretty positive is what it said. I'll have to double check that because I have written down here, but my memory says differently. Or medicine could also be a compound or preparation used for the treatment and prevention of disease, right? So you're getting this, like, the treatment, the diagnosis, the treatment, and things of that nature. And so the reality is, my belief is that the witches, the medicine men, the medicine women, the shamans, these were our first doctors. these were the first folks, and the way that they were qualified is very often in the past, this was passed down through generations. It'd be the grandmother passing it down to the mother, passing it down to the daughter, right? And that's often where that qualification came from. Like you were literally often raised, right, for years, centuries before you'd actually be the town witch or the town medicine man or medicine woman, or the tribe shaman, or however you want to look at it. That's often what qualified. The other thing too, from a qualification perspective, can be, are people going to them and trusting them? Are they seeing results? Right? Are they truly seeing results? I mean, let's think about it. When we step into this natural holistic type of path, there's all sorts of different certification programs out there, but not a single one of them would matter if folks weren't getting the results, right? Um, And so, even with a doctor, even if we're talking about literal Western medical doctors, if doctors aren't getting results, it's going to be noticed. It's going to be indicated. And, the cool thing about an actual Western medical doctor is they often have, because of that formal education and training and, the medical journals and things of that nature, you have a lot of research that you can tap into and share. But I think a lot of that research is very similar to like what we witches today have at our fingertips. There are more publications, I wish I knew this number, around this topic that are continuing to be produced. And by this topic, I mean anything in that magical, esoteric, witchy type of culture that is being produced than I think ever before. I myself have books that I've started to write. I follow a number of authors that are just like well-known occult authors, and continue to produce materials. And so we may not have a medical library, so to speak, to go step into. Maybe we need to create one. Maybe that's something to create. But I truly do. I believe that the witches, the medicine men. And so, I want you to picture this and like the reality. If we were to go back hundreds and thousands of years ago, and we lived at a tribe, let's say we were right here in America. We were part of the indigenous culture that currently lived here. It's 1500, and we're a small tribe. We're part of a small tribe. Maybe there's, I don't know, 150 of us in that tribe. Okay. There is going to be someone in that group that folks are going to turn to provide them a diagnosis, a look in and an evaluation on the physical health, the mental health, the spiritual health, right? They're going to diagnose. And then they're going to be able to provide treatment. And ideally, even after that treatment, let's go ahead and bring you back to a better place. They're going to say, here's what you need to do in order to prevent that, to continue going back. And I think about this so much because literally the way that we referred to, the I Heal workshop this past week was, what you're supposed to do is you start by trying to get an understanding of the ailment of your partner. From there, you need to identify, intuitively what it is that you might be able to do to offer some treatment, right? Knowing and understanding what your current skill set's at, what might you be able to do, right? And then I'm going to have to add this in because I don't think we touched on this one, but like, what do you share and tell them so that they, moving forward, can continue to prevent going back into that place, right? So that's why I'm thinking about this, and I just think about, we've got a medical system that's challenged. You've got more people turned into naturopathic type of roles. And, even though somebody may not want to hold up specifically the label or the title of a witch, I do believe those individuals that are starting to actually, tap into the more natural side are very much more leaning into the witch path. I think the only differentiator there is going to be, right, a naturopathic healer is going to use all of that, the natural kind of healing. A witch is going to know that there might also be the need to pull in some magic, right? Actually doing some type of spell work or ritual in order to continue the healing or to aid in it, right? Or if you think about it from a shamanic perspective, I think people are more, going in, and some of that treatment can be like deeper deeper spiritual things. Uh, so yeah, this is why we're talking about it. It's just been heavy on my head the last couple of days. But why specifically am I sharing it to you? Why does it matter to you? And so I want to make sure we don't leave that out and you feel like, yeah, you get it. You get it. So number one, you may be a natural born healer. Number one. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And how are you going to know that? How are you going to know that you're a natural born healer? And I sat here and gave some thought to this. And I think the number one, you find yourself being of service and you find a lot of joy in doing it. And I mean joy. And I want to differentiate on this because I happen to know that there are some individuals, this is being of service, not people pleasing. There are some individuals that have trauma within their past, within their childhood, and maybe their young adult life, that are going to turn to become people pleasers, right? And that people pleasing tendency is to try to make sure that you're not, somebody on the other end isn't going to hurt you. I am not talking about that. I am not talking about people pleasing because individuals that are people pleasers will do things and be of service, and they often will find that it's stewing in a lot of resentment. It's really easy for them to establish resentment in that. And so I'll give you an example here. Let's say, a perfect example, right? Let's say you planned a party, okay? And you planned it and you asked people to RSVP, and 30 people RSVP'd, and you bought all of the stuff, you know, uh, and you got it all ready and set, but 5 people showed up. So 25 people never even showed up, right? An individual that is truly there to be of service would have doted on those 5 people, would have been delighted in the fact that they could give all of their time to just those 5 people. They would have relished in it, right? They would have looked at it and said, oh, this is perfect. The universe showed up. These 5 people must really need me. Those other 25 must not. The people pleaser, though, would have seen that. And because there wasn't all 30 people for them to quote unquote please, would have not responded in the same way. They would have been upset, maybe angry, maybe resentful, maybe said something, I'm never going to do this again. Right? Do you see the difference there? So a natural born healer is going to be someone that literally is just, often being of service and finds joy in doing it, regardless of it showing up the way that they expected. Another one is you've had your generosity taken advantage of and you continue to give. So individuals that are literally just naturally generous and understand that some humans are so hurt that they will take advantage, but that doesn't mean that you should stop being generous. Those are going to be natural born healers. That's an indication. I also find that if you gravitate towards the kitchen, herbs, natural products overall, there's probably a fire in you to be that natural born healer, especially like turning into the kitchen. Often people don't realize, and I can't even tell you how many folks that I've talked to over the years, they'll be like, I had no clue why in the world I was craving X, why I wanted X, why when so-and-so was sick, I went out and made them this. And that's because they're often in being intuitively guided to tap into certain herbs, products, foods, nutrients, in order to bring about that healing, right? Another one too that I find is you literally work in the Western medical field, but you're not a traditional doctor, right? And I say that because, and I'm not, that's not a diehard. There are going to be some doctors that still are natural born healers, right? There's probably a lot of them. But many of them, I think, because when you're drawn into the medicine, it is a very technical thing. And so some of them are going to be leaning more into the literal traditional medicine research, things of that nature experience, the practicing of the medicine versus their intuition and kind of leaning in that way. So, I'm not ruling it out that a traditional doctor, but I will say, if you are in the Western medical field and you are not a traditional doctor, there's a high probability. So this is the nurses, this is the physical therapists, the occupational therapists. Um, these are especially any of those kind of therapists, even like therapists themselves, social workers, chiropractors, right? And that's because there is this like energetic that runs through you that says there has to be something else I can do to contribute to the healing of an individual, besides actually going down the very challenging path of qualifying to become a literal medical doctor, right? Uh, so that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing all this with you. Another reason is like you may have a feeling that there is something special about you, but you can't quite put your finger on it. So you may feel like, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe you hit some of those natural born healer things, but like you're really feeling like there's something else there. There's some kind of, magic behind the scenes that you can't quite, you just never been able to put some words to it. You've never been able to articulate it. And so the way that this will show up for you sometimes is like your friends are always going to be turning to you when they need help. Like when they're in a rough patch, they're in a rough spot, right? Like that's one of the ways that you're going to kind of feel like, what is this? Like that's that like special kind of energy there. Um, the other one is you're going to have answers and don't always know why. This can even be like you know how to get the answer, but didn't understand why. Right. So that's another thing. And like literally, if you have folks tell you like you're special, you're unique, you're like, oh my God, there's no one like those are other ways. So when you combine that, like that feeling of being special, and then some of those signs and those symptoms of as I said, of being that natural healer, right? You may decide that you literally want to explore your own intuitive healing ways, right? And this is your validation to go do that right now. I mean, I will, go ahead and press stop, press pause, go put a to-do list on your to-do list, send a text to your bestie and say, hey, we've got to go make this happen. We've got to stop talking about it. Whatever you've got to do, this is your validation that it is time, my dear. It is time. Go out and buy the book that you've been holding off to buy. Go out and take the course or the workshop that you've been holding off, putting off, right? And if it's a money situation, reach out to the individual, right, that is leading it, running it, offers it, anything of that nature, and ask, hey, do you do any type of payment plans? Do you have anything for folks that, want to work with you, but maybe are in a different financial situation? Ask. You would be surprised how many individuals would be willing to work with you if you just asked about it. Right. And then last but not least, I don't try to use this as a plug at all times, but fuck, you could join us. Come on in and shoot me an email and let's talk about Illuminate. Right. The world needs more of us. I don't give a shit if you're actually working with me to learn and awaken these gifts and to put them into practice, or someone else. The world needs more of us stepping into this path, embracing our own healing journey, right? Getting our shit right, breaking the cycles, breaking the generational curse, stop doing the shitty things that, humans can sometimes, end up doing, and step into the path of healing and creating a much more beautiful life for ourselves. And, if you're not called to heal other people, then so what? At least you've done your part by making sure that your shit's right. Yeah. So this is your call. 100% right now. If any of those hit you, it's time for you to step into what you need to be doing and become the badass witch that you're meant to be. So that being said, all my dear friends, much love from me to you. Until next time, have a beautiful week. Yay.